Um, we got Mr. Nightmare, man. I hit y'all with a Mr. Baller video earlier today. If y'all haven't checked out the previous two videos that I dropped, make sure y'all go check them out, man. I'm here y'all with a Mr. Nightmare. He just literally came out with this video like probably 10 minutes ago. Cause I had to set back up and everything. So this video just came out like 10 minutes ago. I gotta do the other one too about the fishing one. I'm probably gonna do that. They're gonna be the next Mr. Nightmare video I do. But let's go ahead and get into it, man. And goddamn, you talking about banger after banger I've been putting out. Well, I've been snapping. Consistency is key.
My name is Shelby. My late husband, Antonio, was the best thing that ever happened to me. Long story short, he passed away in a motorcycle accident exactly 8 years ago as I'm writing this, April 29th, 2016. What I'm about to tell you is something I've blocked out of my mind since it happened, but I think I'm finally ready to open up about it. Anyway, Antonio and I both grew up in Italy. English is actually my second language. He always dreamed of traveling to Greece, but we kept postponing the trip. One of my biggest regrets was not taking time off work one summer to go with him. In late spring of 2018, I decided to bite the bullet and take the trip he had always talked about. Being only 36 years old with no children, I didn't too much like the prospect of traveling alone, so I decided to book a cruise, thinking it would be more relaxing. I was actually in luck. Celebrity Cruise Line had a Best of Greece cruise that covered 6 cities: Athens, Santorini, Ephesus, Mykonos, Volos, Thessaloniki, and back to Athens. I tried my best to be excited about the cruise, knowing it was what he would have wanted, but I couldn't help but find the whole thing somewhat melancholy. It just felt wrong.
I want to go on a cruise. Right?
Admittedly, I may have gotten a little too wine drunk.
I might go on a cruise one day, man. I ain't gonna count, man. I need to stop being scared. If I do, I'm gonna do a vlog though.
First night after leaving Athens, but I felt I was entitled to behave less prudently. After exiting the boat and enjoying the city's offerings, I found myself drinking endless martini after martini at some nameless bar. That's when I noticed him across the bar. There was some 40-year-old looking man with long, straight brown hair and an unkempt beard. He wasn't bad looking actually, but his stare was unsettling. At first, I brushed it off as the wandering gaze of some lonely guy. Maybe he found me attractive. I wasn't going to get offended if he wanted to look at me. After catching his eye a few more times, though, I started feeling unease begin to set in. The way he was glaring at me was just so perturbing. It wasn't seductive or charming.
If you and a female, guys, take notes. If you and a female looking at each other longer than 5 minutes, y'all keep looking at each other, just go over there and talk to her. 9 times out of 10, what's the worst you can say? No?
Like he was trying to flirt or anything like that. It was literally as if he were trying to sear a hole in my face with his eyes. I finished what must have been my 8th drink, paid my tab, and quickly made my way back to the dock. By that night, my memory of that man had completely dissipated. The next city on the docket was Ephesus. My time there was essentially spent the same way, consuming far more alcohol than was acceptable for a woman my age.
Damn, I'll be smoking.
Other than some fleeting guilt, everything went well in Ephesus. Mykonos was next. I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to any of you at this point. Near the end of the day, I unavoidably found myself sitting alone at an outdoor bar, and that's when I noticed him. There was a man standing against a light fixture with his arms crossed. I strained my eyes, thinking my mind must have been playing a trick on me. It was unmistakable, though. It was the guy
from the previous trip.
From Santorini.
Oh hell!
He was too far away from me.
Y'all on the same cruise, huh?
At me, but his head was tilted in my direction. Oddly, he was wearing the same exact outfit he had worn at Santorini. A wave of discomfort washed over me. Was I being stalked? My palms began feeling clammy, so I nervously rubbed them on my dress as I lowered my head, trying to avoid looking in his direction. I could feel his aura radiating, though, even from that far away. I couldn't help myself. I glanced back up, but he was gone. You might expect my body to have flushed with relief, but I was actually even more anxious.
Hell no.
I frantically began looking around, trying to see if he had gotten closer. I didn't feel comfortable walking back to the boat alone, so I ran into a couple that was leaving and made some small talk, then walked back with them. That night, instead of retiring to my stateroom, I decided to explore the boat in hopes of running into that strange man. After scouring the boat in its entirety, I gave up around midnight. The next morning, I got off the boat in
She
Volos,
probably
determined
following
to
your
solve this
ass.
mystery. Instead of venturing into the city, I opted to wait at the gangway. I watched painfully for an inordinate amount of time as person after person made their way off the ship. I didn't miss a single one, but he wasn't one of them.
Okay.
Frustrated, I returned to the ship and spent the rest of the day by the pool. Thessaloniki was the last city. As much as I dreaded it, I had to reconcile the fact that I'd be wasting my vacation if I stayed on the boat. So
I gotta ask
reluctantly,
my
I got
girl
off the
how that
ship
shit go.
and tried to enjoy the city.
I
Feeling
don't know. I ain't never been on no
superstitious,
cruise.
I thought it might be best to avoid bars and alcohol this time around, which I
Do
did.
it. I don't know if
Instead, I wandered the
I don't know if it's a dumb question or not. I never been on the cruise. I don't know how it go. I thought they just take y'all to a city, some shit. Yeah. So do y'all go to different cities and shit? Like they stop at different cities for a amount of time, like type shit. Like they. I'm pretty sure that they gonna answer that in this story time. I just figured it out myself.
streets aimlessly, admiring the architecture and enjoying
I
the
never been on a
weather.
cruise, so
And then,
never been
as if
interested.
on cue, there he was again. He was a few streets down in the middle of the road, with his arms at his sides. Instead of being afraid, I felt a huge rush of adrenaline-induced confidence start to pour in. I yelled out to him and began walking in his direction. Instead of acknowledging me, he actually turned and ran. It was bizarre. He turned a corner, and I chased after him. I made it to the corner and barely saw him run down another street. I sprinted to follow him. I turned the same corner, and he had disappeared. Nowhere to be seen, like he had evaporated out of existence.
Hell no.
I couldn't sleep that night. I was relieved
I wouldn't
when
be
the
able to
ship
sleep
pulled
too.
into Athens. But once I made it back home, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling of that man that was weighing on my mind. I whipped out my laptop and started doing research.
No did it.
I wasn't quite sure what to even look for, but I thought recent police reports were a decent place to start. After having no luck, I stumbled upon some missing persons advertisements. I scrolled through page after page, and then I found something. There, in the middle of the page, was a missing person ad for a guy who looked almost identical to the guy who had been following me. I stared, frozen in shock. What was even more disturbing, though, was his name. He had the same first name as my Antonio, which was a cruel coincidence. The very first thing I did was call the police and report my sightings. The operator thanked me for my assistance and put me on hold. A few minutes later, she asked me if I was 100% confident in what I had seen. I told her yes. After an uncomfortable pause, she went on to say that they had actually closed that man's case just over a month ago. Apparently, he had been found dead in a boating accident off the coast of Parga, Greece.
Damn.
What's more sinister, though, is the date of his confirmed death was the exact month and day of my husband's passing, just 2 years later. I hung up the phone, literally shivering. I don't think I've ever been more terrified than I was at that moment. I began feeling dizzy, questioning if maybe I was going crazy, like had I imagined everything. Suddenly, another wave of realization slapped me in the face. The only city I hadn't seen him in, Ephesus, was actually a city in Turkey, not Greece. I'm not a believer of the paranormal, but I've spent hours trying to rationalize my sightings, and no conclusion I reach makes sense. My niece Maria had her wedding in Athens last summer, though, so I had no and like clockwork, there he was again.
Damn, good thing for damn tissue.
I only saw him for a split second this time, standing in that same outfit by the bar, head pointed in my direction. To be completely honest with you, there were so many drunk people there that I might have imagined it. Either way, I vowed to never step foot in Greece again.
Yeah, that's some paranormal shit right now. Not gonna lie. But yeah, y'all let me know about the cruise shit though. I ain't never been on a cruise.
I'm a senior at Rowan University in South Jersey. My friends in the sorority call me Devin. Last summer, I took a Bahamas cruise with some of my girlfriends to let off some steam. We had all just turned 21, so our goals for this vacation were to drink more, and have fun. We all felt like we deserved this vacation after such a grueling semester spent dealing with Greek life drama and schoolwork. Anyway, I'll keep things short. I was with my friends Talo, Messina, and Taylor. Taylor and I didn't always see eye to eye. There was some petty drama between the two of us. I always assumed she was jealous of me because she never spent any time in the gym and spent a lot of time eating. I think you can see what I'm getting at. Anyway, I was really close with Taylor and Messina, so I figured things would be
What? Hmm?
peachy. The cruise line we
Alright,
had booked
buddy.
was Carnival, and it would be going to a couple of Bahamas islands before returning to New York City. The boat pulled into literally the
Female
first
drama, bro.
destination, called Paradise Island. Long story short, all four of us were really wasted at the bar, laughing and flirting with guys so they'd buy us drinks. It was actually really fun. At one point, Messina
Started
asked me if
sounding
I
like y'all
would
some
grab her
hoes
a
to me.
drink, so I did. I went up to the bar, ordered the drinks, and waited. Messina followed me to grab hers. The drinks came out,
Shit, y'all
but I
female.
really wanted to take a selfie with her before we went back to our table. I pulled out my phone and took a couple selfies with the drinks. Just then, Taylor called Messina over, and being as drunk as she went bounding off without me, leaving her drink behind. I didn't want someone to steal her drink, so I put my phone on the bar and grabbed her drink with my other hand.
Have y'all ever seen
With
Hostile?
both drinks, I made my way to where they were sitting and made fun of Messina for being so
I don't
forgetful.
think they have.
Pretty soon after that, we had to start making our way back towards the boat. The literal second the boat pulled away, I started frantically searching for my phone. I felt like such an idiot. I had left it at the bar. I started crying, knowing this would for sure ruin our trip. I wanted to jump overboard for losing my phone on the first day of the cruise. I pulled out my laptop to try and locate my phone's location. To my surprise, it wasn't on the island, but it was actually showing up as somewhere on the boat. It was hard to pinpoint exactly where its location was,
Maybe I called that
but I was
motherfucker.
relieved to think that someone must have found it and returned it to the Lost and Found or something. I went up to Lost and Found, but they said no one had turned a phone in.
Not gonna lie, you know how careless you have to be to lose your phone? Like, for real. Like, I know me, bro. I'm gonna make sure my shit in my pocket every time I go somewhere. Like, I never lost my phone. Now keys, yeah. But for real, like your phone, my nigga, like that's something you need, man. You feel me? That's crazy. I ain't gonna lie.
Any relief I had was
Losing
completely
your
gone
phone is
now.
delusional.
Why would someone take my phone if they weren't planning on returning it? I went back to my friends and cried about it again. Taylor told me not to worry about it, and that I should just try enjoying the trip as best I could. So that's what I did.
How?
I didn't think about it for a whole day, which I was really proud of.
Nigga,
You never realize how much
nigga,
time you actually spent on your phone.
When the house
I
was on
kept
fire,
starting to take
nigga, I ran
selfies or
back in.
check social media,
Hey,
only
bro.
to realize
when y'all remember when my house burned down, nigga, I ran back in the motherfucking. I ran back in the burning house to go get my phone, but yeah,
I had no way of doing so.
not lying to you, bro.
The next day, though, while I was in the very front of the boat, I pulled my laptop out of my bag to check my phone's location, just out of curiosity. To my surprise, it was almost right on top of me.
Oh.
I started looking around, but there were so many people. Any one of them could have had my phone. I told my friends this, and they seemed as shocked as I was, all except Taylor. It looked like she was trying to hold back laughter. I started getting really annoyed when I noticed she found my situation funny. A few hours later, we found ourselves in
y'all
the
still be
arcade
hanging with them
the
type
boat,
of
messing
females
around
too.
with childish games and whatnot. Again, I pulled out my laptop, and once more, my phone's location was basically on top of me. Now I was furious. Whoever had my phone was following me around the boat. It had to be Taylor. That fatty thought this whole thing was a big joke.
That
I
who?
confronted her, showing her proof on my lap.
That who? So. You mad cause she overweight? It's crazy. I ain't gonna lie, man. L
She
story,
insisted
bro.
that she had no idea what happened to my phone, and it wasn't her fault that I was so stupid that I couldn't keep track of it.
Shut ass.
We started yelling at each other. I said some pretty mean things. I made her empty her pockets and her purse, which she reluctantly did.
That's fucked up. I ain't gonna lie.
What if I told you for just $1 down, you could take home a camera, computer?
My phone wasn't anywhere in sight, though. She called me an idiot again, smirking to herself. I stormed off by myself, tears streaming down my face. I spent the rest of my day in my room and refused to do anything with Taylor for the rest of the night. The next 2 days went by really fast. I refused to hang out with Taylor the whole time, and instead spent both days by myself, randomly checking my phone's location out of desperation. When I got back to my room that night, I noticed something weird. There was an envelope lying on the ground, like someone had slipped it under the door. It was a handwritten letter. I started reading, and I felt disgusted. Some random guy named Bart Bakinski had supposedly found my phone unlocked, went through it, realized how attractive I was, and wanted to confess his love for me.
What the fuck?
The letter was really short, but I felt utterly grossed out. Some creep had full access to my phone and knew what room I was staying in. I wanted to cry. I reported this to the crew's security team, hoping they'd be able to do something about it. Unfortunately, they were useless.
Wow.
The good news was that loser Bart didn't try to contact me again, and the cruise ended. Taylor and I made up, and the four of us parted ways. I wish I could tell you the story ended there, though. That same night, after my dad drove me home, I was up late watching reality TV on my laptop. That's when it hit me. Why not check my phone's
You
location
is a fucking
now?
reality TV.
I was kicking myself for not having thought about that sooner. I pulled it up and waited for it to load. I stared in shock as I realized the little blue dot was showing up right on top of my house. My blood ran cold. I screamed, waking my
GG's.
family up. My dad burst into my room, realized what was going on, and sprinted outside in his bare feet, brandishing his hunting rifle. I followed close behind. My dad fired a shot into the air and screamed at the top of his lungs.
Facts. Yeah, that
Just
would have been
then,
me.
Some
Chad,
guy
that was
jumped our
on.
side gate and sprinted down the street. My dad hesitated before deciding not to follow him. I was mortified. My dad and I made our way around back, and the scene was horrific. One of my dad's backyard ladders was leaned up against the side of the house, directly underneath my bedroom window.
Oh shit.
Even more horrifying, though, is that little wooden latch above the window was almost completely cut through. Maybe a few more minutes, and he would have been able to open the window. I might not have been alive telling the story if I had gone to sleep instead of checking my location. We filed a police report, and it's been almost 2 weeks without an incident. I still have trouble sleeping at night, knowing that some creep has access to all of my information, all my pictures, my name, contacts, and address. My phone has been deactivated, but I can only imagine what kind of data he was able to keep. I'll update if something else happens.
Damn, that's crazy. And that happened 2 weeks ago? Probably 3, 4, depending on when Mr. Nightmare actually recorded the video. It's fucking crazy.
This might sound odd to some of you, but I've always dreamed of being a bartender on a cruise ship. I don't know why, but life at sea just sounds so peaceful to me. Plus, I guess what you'd call a social butterfly. And the people you meet on cruise ships always have the most fascinating stories. A few years ago, I made that dream a reality. As a cheerful woman in my mid-20s with a couple of years of bartending experience tucked under my belt, I breezed through the interview process. Royal Caribbean welcomed me as a bartender, and things were off to a great start. I won't bore you with the irrelevant details about my tenure, but you should know that this position came with lots of travel, sometimes too much. After just 2 tours, I interacted with 3 times the amount of people that I had working at my local bar for 2 months.
Damn.
The influx of people was overwhelming. But that's one of the reasons I vied so adamantly for
You know the
this job.
connections you can get, man?
This story takes place during my 3rd tour, a 12-night transatlantic cruise from Miami to Portugal and Spain. It was a long one. We'd be at sea for 5 days straight. There was a silver lining, though. I'd finally be back in Europe, and Royal Caribbean might let me take a week or 2 to return home to Lyon. To preface, I know how to hold my own against drunk, overly flirtatious men buying drinks from me, handsome or ugly, old or young. I always worked nights, so that's just part of the trade.
John Cena versus
During this particular cruise,
Rival.
one customer stood out from the rest, though.
Yeah, they
This
rival.
tall, attractive 30-something-year-old kept.
My bad, I'm watching goddamn Rival. Rival just came on with John Cena versus Batista rivalry. That shit, wow, I know this shit gonna be good.
Catching my
Cow.
eye. Night after night, he'd find a seat at my bar,
For those wrestling
nursing his
fans.
drinks slowly. Eventually, we struck up conversation about each other's lives, and he was always the last customer to
That commercial shit on my nerves.
leave the bar at the end of the night. For the first time in a while, I started looking forward to those late nights when Sebastian would hang around my bar. I I could tell there was some depth behind those light green eyes. A sorrowful look
No,
seemed
they
etched into his features. The third night, I got him to open up about it, and the story was downright depressing. He reluctantly told me about his troubled marriage, pausing often as if weighing each word. His wife Sasha had been having an affair with his best friend from college, Charles. I won't get into the specifics, but it sounded brutal. There were a lot of specifics.
That's a
He
hurt.
literally told me their full names as if he had been waiting to vent to someone about this for years.
I'm gonna kill him.
He went on to tell me that he had boarded the cruise alone, hoping the vastness of the sea would help him forget his pain. I honestly didn't know how to react other than continuing to fill his glass. The night before we were scheduled to dock in Ponta Delgada, he expressed his gratitude for my company and listening ear. "You've made this trip bearable," he admitted. "Let me buy you a drink to show my thanks." This wasn't the first time I'd been offered a drink, but this time was different. I felt a genuine connection with this man, and it seemed unfair what he had gone through. I obliged, telling him I was happy to have helped him through such a difficult time. Normally, I'd pour my own drink, but he insisted on doing it himself, saying it was the polite and fair thing to do. I should have maintained professional boundaries, but his insistence, combined with his apparent vulnerability, persuaded me otherwise. Reluctantly, I agreed, and invited him behind the bar, a decision that might have changed my life.
If your girl working the boys, GG's for you, brother.
He mixed the drink, his hands steady, and handed it to me with a small, sad smile. The drink tasted fine, but within minutes, a heavy drowsiness clouded my senses. I tried to grasp the edge of the bar for support, but everything went black as I succumbed to the unexpected wooziness. I didn't even have time to scream. When I awoke, the sight before me was terrifying. I was in my own room, but the place was in disarray. It looked like a tornado had ripped through it. Panic surged through me as I realized I was tied to my own bed with a towel shoved down my throat.
Whoa.
A wave of relief washed over me as I concluded that my clothes were all still intact, untouched. An hour later, room service found me and freed me. It had been a full day. We were already pulling out of Jamaica. I was more angry than anything else. How could I have been so stupid? I had fallen for Sebastian's charming ploy, and he had taken advantage of my sympathetic nature. I doubted Sebastian was even his real name. My suite, as I already said, was utterly trashed. My jewelry, phone, and my personal belongings were all gone.
So Sebastian
The safe
signed
was
black
wide
too.
open, its contents vanished. My suitcase had also disappeared. The cruise ship security team made a massive deal over this. Not to the passengers, obviously, but amongst themselves. They reviewed the footage, only to discover that guy had disembarked early in Ponta Delgada, not returning to the ship. The crew had no choice but to leave him behind when he didn't show up to the gangway at departure time. They urged me to keep my mouth shut about all this, telling me not to go to the public. They offered me substantial compensation and promised me they'd find him eventually. After all, he must have used a passport to book the cruise.
Yeah.
In the weeks after the cruise, they contacted me and filled me in on what their search turned up. Because the cruise hadn't actually returned to the States, it was a nightmare trying to contact American police and give them details on the crime and the perpetrator.
Oh, wow.
Portugal was a little more compliant, conducting at least a semblance of a search. But even I knew there was no way Sebastian was still in Portugal. The United States eventually did get involved, launching a full-scale investigation. The identities that man had used were all real. Real passport, real name, real address, real everything. They went to his supposed place of residence first. The landlord told them that Sebastian had moved just over a month ago, leaving nothing behind. The landlord did have a personal phone number of his, but that was of course disconnected. The police looked for any property in his name, but there was nothing. His criminal history was also suspiciously clean. The guy had never even gotten a parking ticket. The police went to his previous jobs, all of which gave the same story. The only address they had was the one he left, and the only phone number they had was the one he had disconnected. I was furious. They literally had his full identity. There must have been something more they could have done. I couldn't help but blame myself for this whole ordeal. You might think things ended there. You'd be very wrong. I took an extended leave from Royal Caribbean, hoping to distance myself from the whole thing.
Dumb shit.
Fortunately, the situation only escalated. About a month later, I received the first one. A blank envelope was left in my apartment with a single photograph inside. It was me, walking to my car after doing some grocery shopping.
In your house?
I wanted to scream. A week later, I got the second one, a candid shot of me shopping at the mall. At first, I tried ignoring the pictures, but they just kept coming. The envelopes came one after another,
Go to the
each one a
police.
picture of me, unaware of the camera. Each picture felt like a taunt, a reminder that he was still out there, watching me. I can't describe the terror I lived with during these weeks. I was afraid to leave my house. I couldn't go to work, hang out with friends, or shop without constantly looking over my shoulder. After the sixth envelope, I went to the police. I know you're probably wondering why I didn't go after the first envelope. Honestly, I can't even answer that question.
Oh, let them stack
The
up.
police were not very helpful. I don't think they even knew what to do. But I wanted them to have a record of my case in the event that something more serious came of it. And that's exactly what happened. One night, knocks echoed against my bedroom window. I knew it was him. The police investigated, found nothing, and left me more scared than I had been
You
before
better
they
get your
arrived.
pew pew.
I had had enough. I moved apartments immediately after that, leaving no forwarding address, changing all my contact details, and increasing my security measures as best I could. Thankfully, I never heard from that man again. It's only been about 3 months, though, so hopefully I don't jinx myself by putting this into words. My best guess is that he was able to unlock my phone while I was passed out. That's how he was able to steal all my information. The worst thing about all of this isn't everything that was stolen, or even the fact that my whole life was uprooted when I changed apartments. The worst thing about this situation is that I'll never aspire to work on a cruise ship again. I don't even know.
Nah, hell no. It is the good part, the way in the good part working, and then you got the creeps too. You feel me? So hell no. Second story, Shawty was a bully. I ain't gonna count. She kind of got what she deserved. Yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. She was a bully. Saying her friend, she hanging out with her friend just cause she overweight. She was dead that wrong. The first one, um, definitely probably was paranormal. I ain't gonna even count. Cause that's it been a couple stories like that I done heard too, like with stories like that. Like somebody they know passed away and then you know what I'm saying, somebody else passed away. There's a whole lot of reincarnated shit. I ain't gonna lie to you. That bitch said, give me a thumb, like, subscribe. See when I see y'all motherfuckers, let's ride.